So let's create some GFRs. In this video, I'm gonna create a couple of GFR layers, and then I'll show you the end result. I'm not gonna show you all of them because it's very similar for every layer that you want to create. So let's go into Photoshop and let me I always like to create my rough layer first. And this course, as you can see, as I zoom in here, the fairways are really brown, right? This course isn't maintained that well. But what I want to do is I essentially want to create more of like a brown, green, rough, deep rough area. I want my fairways to be green, not like this. So I'm going to kind of switch things around a little bit. So first of all, let's prep first and let's create our GFR folder. So down here, I'm going to click on the folder. And then up here, I'm going to double click on this name and I'm going to call this GFRs. And now I have a folder that I'm going to be creating all my GFRs within. And I'm going to highlight this folder. Now I'm going to come back over here and let me create another layer. And notice it's in my GFR, and I'm going to call this my rough. And remember, for this course, my rough and my deep rough are going to be the same. No reason why you can't create a separate deep rough if you want, but I am not going to. And now in here, I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool, my sampler tool, and in here I can see it as well. So I've got this eyedropper selected. And now if I come up here, I can see I want to sample. I'm going to do sample. I'm going to sample all my layers, right? I can say current layer, current below, but I'm going to sample what I see here. And you can see I got this brown here. So I'm going to you can see when I click anywhere, so I just clicked, that color ends up in this little sampler down here. And then if I flip those, I can do this, and now I've got two color samples. And if I hit X, I can flop those back and forth. It's easier to see if I do it this way. There's the white one, and let me do flap those and then do another sample here. So you can see I got a really dark, and if I hit X, they flip back and forth, depending which one I'm ready to sample. So I'm gonna do a sample of like a fairly deep brown. Let's do like right in here. Cool, so I got a brown there. And then I'm gonna do like a fairly darkish green. I need to switch this first to my other sample layer. And there's a green here. Let me get in here a little closer. I'm gonna do this green right here. So now I have this dark green and brownish color. And I'm still on my rough layer that I have here. Now with those two, I have these two samples. I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna go to Filter, Render, Clouds. Now when I do that, it's going to complete my rough layer here. I'm going to zoom out so you can see this a little bit better. It creates like this camo brown, using the colors I just used, creates this like camo brown, um, and hopefully you can see this in the YouTube video, but it's a brown and green pattern, okay? Not in pattern, it's pretty random. Not sure if I'm a huge fan of these colors, but this is where you need to play. I can always hide this and I can go back and I could create, two new samples and try this again. Okay, but I wanted to show you guys the idea here of what we got. Now, what also you can do here to manipulate this, this is something that DPR had in some of his videos, is I can go up here to filter, I can go to noise, and I can add some noise to this. I can either add like black and white noise or I can add color noise. Um, and just want to play with this a little bit. So I add a little bit of noise there. And then I can also come up here, and another thing you could do is you can blur this a little bit. So filter, blur, typically a Gaussian blur, and maybe just like 2 pixels so I can smear that out a little bit again. So this would be my rough GFR. So this is what like the color palette for my rough is going to be like. Now let me do another one here. So let me hide this and let me do one for, I'll show you greens. So greens definitely have this, bright green area here. So let me just take 2 samples for this. So I'm back, let me do a new layer here. Let's call it greens. And now I have my sampler again. I'm gonna sample like a darker green on the fairway, hit X, and I'm going to sample like a lighter green on this green area. So they're a little bit different. And now I can come up here and I can do filter again, render clouds. And now I've got the same kind of cloudy thing, but for a much different color, right? So you can see I've got my rough and there's my green, okay? And then the same thing, I can select, I can do add some noise to this if I want. Let me do that. And then I'm gonna do filter, I'm gonna blur it again. And there's so many filters in here that you can play with. I would suggest you play a lot. So now I've got my greens, I got my rough. You get the idea here. Now I can turn these off again, and I could do another sample for my fairway, right? Do different colors. For my fairway, I'd probably do like a dark green and a light green, maybe a little bit darker than my greens for my fairways. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but I am going to show you this other thing. So for my rock overlay, my rock GFR piece of this. So let me show you how I would do that. So I know that I'm using this rock for texture. I'm just going to drag this into my scene here, and you can see it created this new layer called rock 4. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom into this. And actually, so that created rock 4. I'm going to create another layer here under GFR. Let me do that. Another layer here, and I'm going to call this rock. And you can see now I'm going to come up here to my sampling tool again. And now I'm going to take a couple samples from this texture. I don't want to do I want to do like a little bit of the darker stuff. So do a color sample here. It's kind of brownish. I want more gray. There's a gray. And then maybe like another, switch this and maybe go to like a darker gray. That's pretty dark. I don't want to go too dark. That's pretty good. You can see that they're slightly different here. Now I'm going to go, I'm in this rock layer that I created. I'm going to do filter. I'm going to do cloud again, render clouds. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, that's pretty good. I kind of like that. And then I'm going to go up here to filter again, noise, add noise. Yeah, I like that noise. I'm going to add a little bit more because of the rock. Let's see, 12, see what that looks like. Yeah, I like that. I actually might leave the noise and not blur that out. And now what I can do is I can come back here and I can delete this layer. Let me show you because I don't need that. Delete layer. So now I've got this rock layer, GFR, coloring, greens, rough. So let me do the other ones and I'll come back and show you what this looks like. All right, so the end result here is I've got these 4 GFRs now. I got green, fairway, rock 4. I did play with this coloring a little bit and rough. So let me show you all these. And if I turn my satellite, you can get an idea of how these colors look. So this is my green GFR. So it's just my green coloring from the greens on my course. And you can see, even if I zoom in, it might be better if I zoom in here. How this kind of matches. So you can see that's like a dead match for the green coloring, right? So same thing, my fairways, I went a little bit darker. So you can see the difference between my fairway and green. So they're close. Fairways are just a little darker, right? Green's a little bit greener and lighter. Same thing, here's my rock coloring. Now that's a hard one to see because I don't have my rock texture up here, but that's my rock layer coloring. And then here's my rough. Rough has a little bit more brown in it. So let me just show you rough. There's rough and there's fairway. So fairway is definitely greener, whereas rough has a little bit more brown in it. And you can do whatever you want with these. Maybe you don't want any brown. Maybe you want things much green. Maybe you want some blues in there. Whatever you want to do, have at it. So those are my GFRs and what they look like.